Hi, everyone, and welcome to this new live chat about the future of health. Let me welcome Shanthi and Eugene to this evening. It's Friday, 5 p.m. in Central Europe time. And Shanthi, Eugene, where are you connected from tonight?
I'm connecting from Boston, so it is a bit early in the morning, so I cannot drink yet.
Thanks
I'm
for accommodating.
and I'm in lovely Barcelona coming in. And while I would love to have a drink, that's a different show altogether.
Absolutely. And I have to say, of course, welcome again to everyone that is watching. I have to say that I'm a little bit intimidated this evening because I have Eugene on the live chat that, as you know, is starring multiple web series, and so I need to up my game for the occasion. So for those new to this. This is the spirit. That's an informal conversation about the future of health. Of course, starting from the book that is here. Here it is, and to which both Shanthi and Eugene have been contributing in a specific chapter. So how these live chats work? We will be discussing about a few topics, starting from their contributions, and we'll just roll with it by adding perspectives and commenting on the different issues that are reshaping the future of health through the lens of technology, but also its adoption and the interactions of these new ways of doing things, these new modalities, and of course the society, human being, which at the end of the day is really what this interaction is what matters the most. So with that said, let's get going. As those of you that have been attending before, 30 minutes really fly real quick. So before we get into the content, maybe Shanthi, Eugene, if you want to give a little bit of self intro and what main activities are, and then we'll go straight into the content from there. Shanthi, you want to go first?
Sure. First of all, good morning and good afternoon and good evening, wherever you're joining from. And more importantly, congratulations, heartiest congratulations to Roberto for publishing this book. We all have dreams of writing a book. Most of us don't. And so it is a huge commitment and tenacity to finish a book. So Roberto, congratulations. And a huge
Thank you.
To everyone who is joining, please read the book. It is timely, right? Because healthcare globally is transforming. It has been transforming for quite some time, particularly in the last 2 years, almost 2 years, where we have been in a COVID situation. It is vitally important for us to imagine how we want to change the future of the world through the healthcare, right? In terms of access, sustainability, and being human, which is the title of Roberto's book. So congratulations again. About myself, my name is Shanthi Ramakrishnan. I'm the president and CEO of eDevice. We are a health technology company that has sustainably for more than 15 years or so enables remote patient management. We offer products, services, and solutions. And because of the longevity of us dedicated to this industry and to this remote patient management and connected health and telehealth and virtual care, we have seen a lot of shifts and constant re-information and or invention, I would say, and transformation. And Roberto, you talked about reshaping, right? And we have seen it multiple times. So I'm looking forward to sharing what are the shifts that we have seen and what are some of the things that are going to sustain for the future. So thank you for having me.
Fantastic. And welcome again. Eugene, your turn.
Yeah, so first of all, I'm going to show this one as well. And that was my comment. Your comment, Roberto, on the star, and I think Shanthi mentioned we all have dreams of writing a book. I started one, but you don't have one; you have two. So I'm not worthy. Is the comment here? So myself, Eugene Borukhovich, self-described kind of serial intro and entrepreneur. So which means I go in and out of large companies and small. And my own. I'm a co-founder and CEO of YourCoach Health, but also your earlier comment on media. I'm also a senior advisor to Healthware Media and Community Business. So enjoying that. And very briefly on YourCoach, in a nutshell, we're a double-sided marketplace. On one side, we're working with thousands of health coaches, giving them a platform to run their own business and augmenting them via our technology. On the other side, we're working with industry partners that want to embed this amazing workforce that focuses on helping consumers and patients understand, set, and achieve their goals. And in between is a technology, right? So it's a key component, but a key component of all of this is bringing empathy back and human interactions back.
Fantastic. Again, welcome, Eugene. Okay, so let's get going into a bit of content and let's get to the dialogue going. Shanthi, I mean, you contributed to the very first chapter of the book, and the first chapter, it's titled "Devices, Sensors, and Signals." That, of course, was not a random choice, because we know that those data points are often at the beginning of any given patient journey, but I would say even health journey, because, while, as I said that now multiple times, sooner or later we'll all become patients, because it's inevitable for a big part of our life. Hopefully we are healthy, but we still produce a lot of signals, and those signals can be used in so multiple ways. So maybe, Shanthi, with an eye to that multiple shifts that we have been observing, maybe you want to illustrate this from the unique perspective of a company that has been around since more than many others. And 15 years ago, we were starting with the first wearable. It was very early on in that camp. and we see tremendous evolution. So I'll be curious to hear your perspective through your experience about this concept of using signals, so to speak, across essentially what I define health journey.
Absolutely. Thank you. So I'm going to set a context for what has happened in a traditional medical device space where I come from, right? Or even pharma. I'm not a pharma person, but one of the major shifts that has happened in the last 15 years or so that you mentioned, Roberto, is the definition of what a device is all about and definition of what a signal is all about and where is it coming from, right? In a traditional medical device sector, we used to have sensors and signals that would come from implantable devices within the body, biosensors, worn outside, to your point about wearable devices. And they would either enable, not all of them, but you would enable the detection, the diagnosis, and hence the delivery of therapy that a patient might need. And that was a traditional model of a device which picks up the signals and makes sense out of the data that comes out of it. But in the last, I would say, 7 to 10 years, things have completely changed because of the digital health, right? The definition of a device is different. Now it is data, the algorithm, and the software is a device. That's what it is. Those are the signals that we are dealing with. And another differentiation about the signal is it is no longer limited to biosignals that arises out of the human body. It is actually a lot of signals that comes real time. These are user generated. Consumers or even patients like you and I generate. And most importantly, it also includes data from the environment that we are living in, right? For example, I'm in the Boston area. It's fantastic blue sky. It is freezing, but the air quality, if I were suffering from, let's say, for example, COPD or asthma, I get signals, very different signals than what we were used to in terms of the air quality. Does it have an impact? Because we know it has an impact. From that perspective, these are the shifts that have happened in the last, I would say, 7, 10 years. And that excites me, right? That excites a company like eDevice, which has recognized the shifts. And hence, we are coming up with different solutions. Our devices are different. Our solutions are different. Our services are different. I will give you a very specific example. For example, we have a solution called a toucan pulse, which deals with congestive heart failure patients. These are the patients that they are diagnosed with congestive heart failures. We have this product solution, particularly in France, and we want to expand outside of France as well. And this is a great example of how we are taking sensors, which measures, for example, oxygen saturation and weight, which is still a gold standard for anyone who's dealing with congestive heart failure. Those are the signals. And how do we keep the patients in their own home, measure those signals, take those signals, which allows the providers, or in this case, doctors and specialists, congestive heart failure specialists, manage the patients remotely. The patients are still in their home. They are getting the same care as if they would get in the doctor's office. Preferably, we don't want them to go into the hospital system, but that's how the signals have changed, right? Where does it start? How is the signal being transmitted from a patient's home to the doctors? They can be anywhere in the world. And how does it allow for the doctors to take care of the signal and make the right clinical decision? That's how we ourselves as a company has shifted our way of looking for different signals. I'm going to stop here and see if you have any further questions on it.
No, that's super interesting. Let's keep going, and then we'll come back to this in kind of in multiple ways. Eugene, your contribution has been to the digital therapeutics chapter, right?
Yeah.
So we know digital therapeutics are software only or software combined with the drug interventions, which are essentially clinically validated and aiming at patients and able to demonstrate clinical outcomes through evidence, which today largely is about remote randomized clinical trials and other form of evidence, but with that being the main avenue. I'm saying this just to re-emphasize what the definition of a digital therapeutics is. And on those interventions, but also taking and building on what Shanthi shared, we heard about multiple signals, connections, doctor to patients, remote tele health activities, which are complemented with this data that are being gathered. All of this increases the complexity for sure on both to the patient side and to the physician side. But focusing on the patient, there's more complexity. There are many more occasions to stay connected to care, the way I like to say, in between doctors, visits. All of this, it's completely new, right? There's more data points, more evidence, more complexity, more, and this is, and correct me if I'm wrong, an area where I believe the health coaching can play a role, right? In not helping people navigating through the various interventions, the various tools and platforms. So I'm curious to hear your perspective about that, and whether YourCoach is dealing with this or in other forms.
Yeah, thanks, Roberto. I think I'll back up just a little bit on a couple of things that you said in there. On one side, I think it does increase complexity, I think, for the healthcare system, right? And specifically on, I think, the prescription digital therapeutics, right? Because there's still quite a lot of adoption that needs to happen in the system from a reimbursement perspective and many other things. Which, by the way, adherence to those, software as a medical device, SaMD, right, on the European side, and then FDA-approved prescription is a key component of that. I think on the non-prescription side, and this is where digital therapies and software comes in. If the software is truly designed with the end user, aka patient, in mind, then in theory it should not increase the complexity. It should alleviate the that patient journey through that process. Having said that, and I'll back up, each one of us as human beings have goals, right? And if we don't know them, that's where health coaches are really, really good at. They're trained in motivational interviewing, reflection techniques, and many other science-backed tools to help you as an individual understand and set your goals. Now, part of that goal could be, adhering to a digital therapeutic in mental health, a self-paced tool, as an example, right? Now, one key differentiator, and I think this is where a lot of, also digital health companies and the use of health coaches have been, as this new amazing workforce of educated individuals and certified individuals, and been mistaken into kind of nudgers, for lack of a better term, as in somebody just needs to be a reminder instead of a notification on your phone. And so there's a lot of education to be done, by YourCoach and the rest of the health coaching community, to really drive a lot of this adoption in, again, this new workforce that can help all of us individuals setting goals, adhering to those goals, achieving those goals, and not to be a nuisance, right? One quick thing, and I just want to maybe comment on Shanthi's words. So you mentioned signals, and to me, I think of a signal as almost completely the opposite of a noise, right? And this is where also digital therapies do come in, because while there's tremendous data points that are gathered throughout that patient journey, it's the signals, right, that are quote unquote sent in ultimately to the prescribing physician or to you as an end user, or in our case would be to a health coach. And so we actually have a concept of health scribing. So these are non-prescription digital therapies that coaches can embed into their practice.
Great. I mean, that's That's great to hear. Let me go back to the concept of complexity. You're right. If things are designed in a patient-centric, authentic way, and well, I would say well designed, that complexity should decrease. I'm referring to the complexity, or probably the enrichment of the health experience, because you have all of a sudden way more tools and opportunities than before. Think about a chronic condition where in the past you were only able to see your doctor twice a year and almost, have little less in between visits. That was probably not optimal, but very simple and quite straightforward in terms of, this is what you get, and this is you have your therapy, you have your, every 6 months, check in and potential adjustment of the therapy. Of course, despite spikes that, had brought you to an hospital. Now, the moment that you have your login on a telehealth platform, which of course is great to have, and then you have your sensors pouring the signals in, chances are these platforms will interact with you and give you feedback almost on a daily basis or on a continuous basis. And of course, this is completely different than in the past. Also, think about genetic signals, right? You're able to do some kind of screening. You get this genomic insights. Then what to do with those, right? All of this new interactions and this richness of signals do produce new questions, probably new feelings, new emotions, maybe concerns. And I see a need for ways to make all of this feedback useful and profitable from an individual perspective, both, I would say, from a strictly physiological perspective, but also emotional perspective. And there I feel, health coaches, maybe even the health coaches of the future that, will probably they will evolve as well as training, that might play quite a role into helping people to deal with this. That's what I mean with complexity. Probably it carries a slightly negative, flavor, but I'm not saying as a negative. I'm saying as more opportunities, but also more questions. More things you want to know, more guidance you might want to receive. So that's where I was going with that. And Shanthi, may I ask
Roberto,
you? Yeah, please.
Sorry, I just want to maybe quick comment on, I think it does increase the complexity, right? And kind of human biology is obviously very, very complex. And we talk about, comorbidities, right? And so in the drug world, the pharmaceutical companies, you might be on multitude of different drugs, right, across. And so I think this is the opportunity for digital health companies, and to a certain extent, let's not repeat in digital therapies what's happening in the pharmaceutical space, right? And so there's a lot of these discussions on, will there be the platform for digital therapies? One would argue, maybe somebody like Pear that now has 400 million in the bank or something like that can start consolidation of that. But again, I think the human being involved in this, and I love your concept of even the future of health coaching. There was a study, we can comment later done that even, in today, physicians should go also get their kind of health coaching certification on top. We know for a fact that pharmacists today are trained in motivational interviewing. This was something I just discovered, So I think, again, some of those techniques and the future, and you know what, all of us should learn what health and wellness coaching is as well, right? Because those are sort of key behavioral change agents, and we all need to be that. So I just kind of wanted to touch on the complexity. I think the reduction in complexity is the hope and the goal for the future of health, right?
And also ceding some of the control to the patients or the consumers, right? Because to Roberto's point and Eugene, to your point, we used to talk about patient advocate, right? Who are able to just go through this complexity, literally sift through the complete complexity to say, okay, what is the action that I'm going to take? And I think for a lot of us, including myself, where you are sifting through the data for on behalf of your family members, it is overwhelming. It is really overwhelming. In some cases, having that advocacy distributed a little bit more, whether it is with health coaches or your own practicing physicians or yourself and including the patients, that I think would reduce the complexity, because ultimately we all know simplicity is the most complex thing to develop, right? And perhaps one way to resolve is to say, look, we know it is complex and it's also complicated, both of them, and how do we distribute them? That might be a solution that we should be looking at. And I think your platform, Eugene, that you have with health coaches is a very good mechanism to deal with it.
Yeah, no, thank you guys. I think this is really, kind of, which is interesting because it's happening on every live chat we do, and I got comments that it's visible through the book. It's almost like we are reshaping this future of health by a number of bits and pieces that are interconnected each other. This is really evident in many things we are saying. And what I love about this evening is that we are combining almost the two ends of the spectrum, right? The signals, which are, of course, digital bits, with health coaching, which is made by humans. And so it's more like the digital soul, so to speak, or of the equations. And these things kind of connect, each other in ways that probably we have yet even to figure out, and probably this, will be discovered as we go. And so going into the last few minutes, as I said in the beginning,
wow, already?
Yeah,
this flew.
It flies, because when things are so interesting, it goes fast. Shanthi, what you observed, I would say, that you feel to share special during the COVID, acceleration. I use this term because we know has been a huge acceleration. You guys have kind of reshuffled things to respond, and as you might remember, when we had the Fight to the Pandemic special edition in May 20 of Frontiers Health, of course, eDevice was one of the companies that had the solution that quickly was brought to fruition. And I'm sure, as many others, you might have at this point observations about this shift. But I would say beyond the obvious, more adoption, many more people understanding that this is a thing. So I'm curious what you have seen specifically, or maybe unexpectedly, or changing, and maybe which part of that you see sustaining. I was tempted to say after, but we're not after, right? So it's like that is keeps staying, as we go through the I would say the iterations of the variants.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question, Roberto. I openly confess, I'm one of the ones who used to practically complain healthcare moves at a glacial pace, literally glacial pace. But one thing that we all learned is during the COVID is it was a sea change and it just happened. That's number one. Number two is I think human beings have the capacity that I've always believed in, and I continue to believe in it. We have a capacity to adapt. And some of the technologies that we're talking about, including the digital and non-digital, they have been in the marketplace for multiple decades, right? Unadopted for a variety of reasons. We don't have to get into it. But when it comes to a time, unfortunately, it happened to be a COVID and a pandemic, we have capacity and we have an innate ability to adapt and adopt, and we did that. And I am an optimist. I'm an eternal optimist that I hope it will sustain, and I sincerely hope, and we need to make sure that it sustains our adaptability. And the final thing that I would say is there are some basic table stakes in the healthcare, right? Whether you're delivering anything at all. Three things. Number one, and I think we already talked about it, any solutions that we develop, make sure that it is clinically efficacious. It has proven and demonstrated economic outcomes, and also not to miss the operational complexity that we are talking about, right? Even though you may have the best clinically efficacious, let's say, therapy or a diagnostic tool, and it might have a very, very attractive financial models. However, most of us miss the operational complexity. And I think that we do need to take care of it, because we struggle with it and we still struggle with it. While we are still going through the particularly the supply chain disruption, which is having a huge impact on practically every single business, including healthcare, we do need to take lessons to say, we have to look at the operational efficiency and how are we delivering care. Those are the three things that I would say.
Great. This will trigger a zillion other questions, but I refrain from that to be mindful of time. But of course, we will have multiple opportunities. Eugene, let me come back to you with something that it's connected also to your recent activity or more recent activity with us as advisor, right, to the media and community side of Healthware. I think something that we have seen, it's the need for education at all levels about these technologies, right? Because, and when I say technologies, I use this very broadly. You alluded to also about the education about, the health coaching itself. So something we are observing more and more is this need for the entire healthcare sector and probably physicians and nurses to get up to speed about digital health, which is not only technology, is also the application of it, how to read through the evidence to distinguish between things that are proven and things that are less proven, and so on and so forth. Also to Shanthi's point a second ago. So what I would like to ask you is to articulate a little bit about this, maybe what's in the cooking to help physicians to get up to speed with digital health, kind of skills. Yeah. Because of course, on one end, we can add this to university training, which is cool. We will be ready in 15 years. But the question is what we do in between now and then with the doctors that are on the field and nurses that are on the field as we speak. So I'm curious to get your perspective on that.
Yeah, maybe I'll actually back up to 2017. And of course, as I've been in the space, I remember the Frontiers Health Conference when the DTA kind of announced that they're coming onto the scene at the Frontiers Health Conference, right? So the Digital Therapeutic Alliance. And the reason I bring this up is there's many levels of learning and educating, sometimes yourself, which I think all of us do, right? And again, I think we have some, I'll say, trendsetters, people that are, across a multitude of professions, right? Just self-learning. And I think something like Frontiers Health is a great way to start, by the way, at the event, but also kind of throughout the year, right? And I think that kind of brings the power of media to sometimes tell the stories of those entrepreneurs, right? Whether it's on stage or virtually, right? Virtual stage. When we talk about, let's use the digital therapies as an example. When the German DIGA, right, was sort of came onto the scene as well. Within that first year or two, and even now, speaking with many physicians, there's complexities around understanding what that is, what that means to their workflows, what that means really to the reimbursement. And so I think there's tremendous opportunity for, systems, hospital systems to educate, their employees across the board. There's also opportunities to, within life sciences companies, right? As the digital divide across, multitude of different generations and income levels and others to understand what that means. And in this case, whether digital biomarkers and R&D or leveraging, health coaches in a clinical trial setting, et cetera, right? So to me, I look at media, and I know this is nothing new from one perspective, but when it's applied to digital health and digital therapies and others, this is still a new frontier, right? And I'll kind of finish off here with the fact that I've read this somewhere or heard it, that by the time you personally are just tired of talking about something, this is when it's just starting to percolate in other ears, right? And this is actually the time to pick up the steam and educate and launch academies around it, et cetera. So, yeah.
No, thanks for saying that. And even the book has been written not for experts, so to speak. It has been written for anyone, literally, whether a consumer, a patient, a physician, a policymaker that is interested to get a sense of the digital health transformation. Essentially, with that in mind, I had the opportunity to say, a few weeks ago, that probably we are kind of ending sort of a phase one of digital health transformation, which I would say it has been more about a sort of is this a thing? It's happening? Is not happening? Truly as literally, is this a thing? Right? I think that we have dealt with, and we have multiple KPIs that would probably prove that. I think we are now into the beginning of a sort of a phase two, which is, no longer talking only among ourselves, experts, but like out there, start to really see adoption at the broader scale. And of course, I'm not talking about some beautifully designed and very effective consumer apps, which have been literally, at the intersection of the digital consumer world, which of course has 20 plus years of, deployment and health, but more, I would say more of the more core, healthcare applications, which instead is just in the beginning because adoption is still very small, will change, will be big and holistic, I'm sure, but it's all the work that we need to do. So I agree with you, and I'm a big believer of the need for a concentrated effort to really bring this dialogue to literally everyone concerned with healthcare, which, as COVID reminded us, it's the entire society, right? If there's no healthcare, there's no economy, there's no society, there's no schooling, there's no jobs, essentially. So everyone has to be concerned about health and the way we reinvent and transform because of these technology opportunities that we have. Guys, today I've been incredibly not disciplined. We are 8 minutes over, and that's my fault, but your merit, because topics were very interesting. So let me just say thank you so much for making the time. Shanthi, CEO at eDevices, and Eugene Borukhovich, co-founder at YourCoach, and our fellow advisor to Healthware Media. Thanks everyone for tuning up tonight. And as always, this is available immediately after on all platforms for playback. And we'll pause for next week for Christmas. And the live chats on the future of health will resume with the new year. So with that said, thank you again, guys. Thank you for watching, and happy holidays. We'll see you next year.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Be safe.
And congrats.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah. Have a good evening.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.